Learn all about living in Guadalajara, Mexico from Expat Will Chapman in this video interview with expats in Mexico. Where do you live in the city?
Right in the center in the Colonia Americana, so about 4 blocks from the U.S. consulate.
That's a very big expat center, isn't it?
It is, though it's deceiving because, like Mexico City, it's not. The foreign population here is dispersed throughout the whole city, and of course, a lot of people. It's not necessarily a place people come for vacation or for retirement. So, what you have here, I think, compared to a place like San Miguel or Puerto Vallarta or Lake Chapala, those are places where you'll find a lot of retired couples. You don't find so many retired couples here. You find single people coming to work, and they've been posted here by Tesla or HP or Google or Apple or whatever. You find people who maybe met their Mexican spouse abroad and moved back here. So I guess I fit into that category. You find people starting families who are, becoming assimilated into Mexican society. And you find individual retirees, but and a lot of dual nationals, a lot of Mexican Americans who fit quite naturally into Mexican society here. They happen to have U.S. passports, and sometimes they're more acculturated to life in the U.S. and sometimes less. So it's not by any means kind of a monolithic demographic. It's much more diverse, I'd say, than some other areas like Puerto Vallarta and San Miguel, where you've got a physical concentration of U.S. citizens in a much smaller geographic area. So there isn't really, this is called the Colonia Americana, and I guess there are a lot of foreigners here, though I don't know that the name relates to the fact that there are foreigners here, because there was a Colonia Francesa, and these were all kind of development projects at the end of the 19th century. So it could have been an American developer for all I know. But it's still a very Mexican neighborhood, is what I'm saying.
Do you live in a home there, or do you have an apartment or a condominium?
Live in an apartment where I can just walk out my door, and there are cafes and restaurants, and there's a pharmacy, and there's a little market, and convenience stores and hardware stores. And so it's not Manhattan or DuPont Circle, but it's a nice urban neighborhood. We're not far from Chapultepec Avenue, which is kind of one of the axes for nightlife in Guadalajara. There are lots of restaurants and bars and cafes, and so if this were Mexico City, I'd say it's be closer to Colonia Roma. And if this were Puerto Vallarta, I'd say it's closer to Zona Romantica.
What size is the apartment that you live in?
It's a 2-bedroom. It's got a balcony. It's got a patio. It's got a couple of parking spaces. When I decided to look for an apartment, I was looking for a studio, and because I hadn't really thought of selling our house and our furniture in New Hampshire, but then I came across this building and I had admired this building for a while, walking through the neighborhood. I wasn't living here. I was living back in Zapopan, which is where Ricardo's family house is. And but I saw the for rent sign, and I thought, well, it can't hurt to take a look. And I looked at it, and I thought, well, it's much too big for my needs. But then I thought, but it's a great location, and it's a nice building, and it's well maintained, and I'll be happy here, and it's easily affordable. So
Is your building a like classic structure, something that had been there for many years?
it's a modern apartment building, but small. There are only 5 apartments in a penthouse.
Oh, nice.
Below, and we're right below the penthouse. Um, it doesn't have an elevator, which I didn't want because I thought I want the exercise as long as I can do it. Um, but its principal appeal, aside from the good flow and the aesthetics, are the location for me because I can walk to the opera house and the cathedral in under half an hour, uh, and I'm 10 minutes in Uber to my gym, and those are the two cardinal points on my personal access.
How much
Right.
how much do you pay a month for your apartment?
It's around 15,000 pesos a month.
Oh, that's very good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's be in a place like Puerto Vallarta, but it's not a resort town, and it's not a tourist area, though it's a very attractive area. Um,
What do you do?
no, it's
What do you do for entertainment there? I mean, obviously you go to the opera and the symphony and all the arts.
eh, entertain friends. We have dinner parties. Go to friends' homes for dinners. Um, there really isn't a theater per se that I can have found here. There's a little bit, but my Spanish is not yet. Well, I wouldn't know. I should really try going to some plays. Um, of course, in Chapala, which is only an hour away, there's plenty of theater and all sorts of stuff in English. Um, and go to museums and art galleries. The visual art scene here is uh, quite interesting, and also design. Was just at a kind of a design expo last weekend of new furniture designers, rug designers, and all of that. And I'm still in the process of finishing the furnishing of this apartment. We sold off a lot of stuff in the States and just brought down the few things that we really cared about, plus the artwork. Ricardo had an art gallery back in Boston, and so we have more art than we know what to do with. And some of it's from Mexican artists from here, where they're actually, in New Hampshire, no one had any idea who they are, but here they're widely recognized. So it makes sense for a lot of the work to be here. Um, so
Did you bring a car down, or do you use Uber and taxis?
I have my old Volkswagen Cabrio convertible back in New Hampshire for when I go back there in the summer. So I love driving around those country roads with the top down. But it would make no. I mean, the car is from 1997. It would make no sense to bring it down. I may get one, but it's probably cheaper just to use Uber here
I think it
and
is.
and to rent a car
Less
on
of
an.
a hassle with the parking there.
Well, I've got 2 parking spaces in this building, but parking elsewhere, and then you have to worry about insurance and theft and vandalism and maintenance and all of that, and I don't have to worry about it.
Is the cost of living there quite good?
Well, compared to Washington, yeah. Boston, yeah. New York, yeah. San Francisco, yeah. I mean, all the places I've lived in the United States, with the exception of rural New Hampshire. Um, I would say the cost of living here is maybe a third of what it is in Washington, maybe less, you know. So I'm paying much less here for a nice two-bedroom apartment with amenities than I paid in my rental in Washington, which was a studio. Because I didn't buy anything there. I didn't know how long I was going to be staying, and I wasn't ready to sell the house in New Hampshire yet.
What are the three things that you really love about Guadalajara that you would sit down over a glass of wine and say, listen, if you're thinking about moving to Mexico, and specifically Guadalajara, here are the three things that you really need to know about the city?
Well, it does have a pretty fantastic climate. And even though the climate seems to be changing, uh, it's changing everywhere. So it's still it's very favorable. Um, you know, in the winters don't get too cold. The summers don't get too hot because you have the rains. Um, there are really only a few weeks in late May and early June where it's hot and dry before the rains come, which is, that's an excellent time to travel, to go to Mexico City, to go to New York, to go to Toronto. May is a wonderful month to be in New York, and it's even nice in rural New England. Um, so um, it has a nice combination of big city and small city. So people here joke that Guadalajara is this village of 5 million people. And if you're married to someone who was born here and grew up, you can easily believe that, because it really does. I mean, at a certain level, everyone knows everyone. Um, so that's good. And it's got, for people who are looking to kind of hedge their bets, it has uh, it has enough, but not too much for most people. Now, I'm not most people, so my natural habitat is the corner of 57th Street and 7th Avenue. Um, so I'm quite happy in the middle of Manhattan, but this is fine too, and it's very easy living if you like easy living.
Are you retired or still doing some consulting work?
I'm in denial.
Explain.
Uh, well, I don't know what the term retired is supposed to mean. I haven't ruled out working again, but I don't need to work. And mm, I've got plenty to do with Democrats abroad, Mexico. That keeps me quite busy. Uh, so between that and the odd consulting project, but I haven't done any consulting clients in the States now in almost about 2 years now. So uh, if someone if the phone rings, great, but I'm not chasing it.
Sounds like you've got a
And
wonderful life.
but it's privileged. Let's just say it's privileged, and it is a privilege to have one's health and to have one's spouse and to be able to uh, pick and choose the projects one works on, and then to have to worry about whether you want to go to the new Japanese restaurant that just opened, or the new Italian restaurant that just opened, or your favorite Spanish wine bar, or whatever. So, first world problems.
Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Okay, take care.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.